Did you hear the one about the Thunderbirds? Most unexplained stories ask you to look into the dark. Thunderbird stories ask you to look up. They don't come from dreams or folklore alone. They come from fields, highways, open country. They're reported in daylight, often by more than one person at a time, and almost always described the same way. It was too large. It moved too slow. It was all too real. Tonight we're talking about myth come to life and why so many people across centuries described the same impossible things in the sky. Buckle up, Buttercup. We're taking a drive into Thunderbird territory. Now, what do people mean when they say Thunderbird? Believe it or not, the term Thunderbird is older than newspapers. Indigenous cultures across North America used it to describe powerful sky beings. But when settlers began using the word, they weren't repeating the myth, they were reporting real events. In the 1800s, there was no category for a bird larger than any known bird. So, naturally, witnesses borrowed an existing word to describe the size and presence of the things they were seeing. Newspapers adopted the term not as mythology, but as shorthand, like Sasquatch. And this goes way back. From the 1870s through the early 1900s, local newspapers across the United States published accounts of giant birds. These weren't national headlines. They were small-town reports. Farmers describing shadows passing over fields that didn't necessarily line up with the clouds. Ranchers reported livestock reacting violently. Hunters described birds that dwarfed eagles. Descriptions repeated the same details, and that's what made it the most interesting. Wingspans far exceeding known species. Dark or black coloration. Slow, deliberate flight. Little to no wing flapping. Almost gliding. Some papers treated the stories lightly. Others printed them as straight fact. What stands out now is how similar the reports were across different states, with no shared context. We should really talk about the Arizona Territory incident. In the 1890s, newspapers reported an encounter in the Arizona Territory. Multiple witnesses described a massive bird-like creature flying low over desert terrain. The report emphasized difficulty flying, as if the creature were near the limit of what wings could support. The description included enormous wings, obviously, a dark body, and a sense of strain rather than agility. The story spread nationwide. Skeptics called it an exaggeration, but exaggeration doesn't usually produce identical details across multiple witnesses. Of course, the question I have: if it looked like it was straining under flight, how could something like this exist? How could it grow to this size and still be able to survive, hide, feed itself? There are no easy answers. So why don't photographs exist? There are plenty of bird watchers out there and plenty of photos of birds. But why no photos of a Thunderbird? In the 1800s, photography was rare, slow, and for the most part staged. In rural America, it was almost non-existent. even today, most wildlife encounters happen too fast to capture. People don't reach for cameras when something unexpected crosses overhead. They freeze, they watch, they remember, and they never forget. And just ask our fellow Bigfooters out there, those that have had sightings and regret not reaching for their phone, but they all speak about the same thing: being transfixed by the event, being frozen by it, not necessarily rushing to document the occasion. I would imagine there's a bit of fear for your life that plays into that as well. There are plenty of modern sightings as well. This isn't just something that lived in the dusty past. Thunderbird sightings didn't stop with the newspaper age. They continued quietly. Throughout the 20th century, reports surfaced in Illinois, Pennsylvania, Texas, Alaska, the Pacific Northwest. Modern witnesses often mistook the birds for aircraft at first. They described shadows larger than cars, silent gliding, wingspans wider than roads. Many eyewitnesses were hunters, pilots, or outdoors workers, people familiar with local wildlife. What changed wasn't the reports. What changed was how quickly they were dismissed, laughed at. And if you're gonna kill a witness, first thing you do is laugh at them. Let's talk about my favorite Thunderbird case and the reason that I'm so interested in this particular subject matter. I wanted to share it with you. In July of 1977 in southern Illinois, multiple children reported being lifted briefly by a massive bird. The report attracted police attention. Multiple adults in the area reported seeing an enormous bird shortly before. Authorities suggested large eagles or misinterpretation, but even conservative estimates placed the wingspan well beyond known species. No hoax evidence was found. The case was never resolved. It remained one of the most investigated modern Thunderbird reports. One boy even claimed that he was in his front yard playing catch with a friend, and the giant bird came down, picked him up, and carried him across the yard in full view of his friend and his mother. Luckily, it dropped him, and he's with us to this day. But does this make sense from a biological standpoint? It's not impossible, it's unlikely. Science doesn't say giant birds can't exist. It says they're unlikely. The fossil record shows birds with wingspans over 20 feet. Pterodactyls and all those guys. Those existed, and they were massive and powerful. Flight mechanics allow for large gliding animals under specific conditions. But what science struggles with is persistence without detection. But rarity doesn't equal impossibility. It only means we'd expect very few encounters, which is exactly what the record shows. These things have been seen, they've interacted with mankind, so I don't think it's something we can easily discount. And to be fair, how hard is it to believe that there is a giant bird out there? Condors exist. Vulture wingspans are insane. Not to mention the theory that there are still some remaining pterodactyls or pterodons out in the wild. Now, like Bigfoot, we don't see them as often, but there would have to be some kind of population. There would have to be some kind of breeding population that would keep these things in play. Of course, most Thunderbird sightings, I think all Thunderbird sightings, but don't quote me, are of singular animals. And usually birds are in flocks. But imagine seeing a flock of Thunderbirds, 20-foot wingspans. It would be like watching an air show. Horrifying. Absolutely terrifying if you ask me. As of recently, within the past few months, new thunder crow sightings have been reported in the Hoh rainforest in Washington state. These apparent giant crows are, 4 to 5 feet tall with 12-foot wingspan. If you are in the Washington state area, let me know if you've seen anything that massive. Certainly a 5-foot tall crow would stick out a little bit. Thunderbird eyewitnesses rarely seek attention. There's no movement, no community, no reward. There's no movement, no community, no reward. Most people tell the story once and never again, because it's easier to forget than to explain and relive. And it's easier still to just stay quiet and say nothing at all. Pretend like it didn't happen. Thunderbird stories don't ask you to believe in monsters. They ask you to accept that sometimes people see something they can't place. Something that doesn't stay long enough to be studied, categorized, cataloged. But it was there all right. So if you're driving tonight and the sky feels wider than usual, look up. Some stories don't hide in the dark. They pass overhead, duck in and out of the clouds, and keep going.